So recently, I stumbled upon this strange and semi-obscure PlayStation game, and while I'm sure a good few of you out there may know what it is, I'm also sure many of you, like me, have never heard of this franchise before, so I'd really like to tell y'all about it. Because while doing research for this video, and looking even deeper into it, the more I found myself spiraling into this really fascinating series. And while this video was originally just going to be a retrospective on the short-lived franchise, which I guess it still technically is, I also found a lot more that I'd really like to tell you all about. If you saw the thumbnail or read the title for the video, you probably already know what I'm about to talk about. And that being, Vib Ribbon. And if you'll indulge me, I'd like to take you down this strange rabbit hole I stumbled upon. You see, the joke is Vibri is a rabbit, so going down a rabbit hole would, I'm sorry. I feel it's important to say I've actually never played a Vib Ribbon game before. Now I know that sounds bad, nor have I even heard of the character until roughly 10 months ago. Now I know that sounds bad. I actually ended up learning about her from an art challenge I was doing at the time, with someone requested that I draw her. And then that video proceeded to absolutely blow up on my channel, with it sitting at 70k as I record this video. Which, thank y'all. You guys are amazing. But it did make me start wondering about who this character could be, considering I've never heard of them before. At first I assumed it was probably just an indie game character, like your Celeste or your Hallowed Knights, which turned into me uncovering a game franchise that seemingly for no reason flew under the radar and is now rarely talked about, with it only having a small community of fans for this seemingly niche franchise. This also got me to think about how quickly games like this, and others, can somehow fade out of the public eye and into obscurity. Or perhaps never had a real chance to succeed to begin with. So, I'm going to talk about Vib Ribbon now. I hope y'all enjoy. Yippee! The original Vib Ribbon released in 1999, developed by, and I'm sorry if I butchered this really bad, Nina and Shaw, or as many of you probably know them as, the people behind Parappa the Rappa. And while these two games do share a few similarities with each other, with them both being rhythm games, they're still drastically different from one another, both in art direction and, well, while Parappa has a story going alongside the game, Vib Ribbon on the other hand very clearly doesn't, with it for the most part just being a simple rhythm game, without any overarching plot or narrative. Well, now how am I supposed to get my fix of playing a funny rabbit game with lore? He's right behind me, isn't he?
Come on. We both know you're not gonna use a...
The game has a very minimalist art style, with Vibri simply having to dodge obstacles that correlate with the music. And now you gotta help her by hitting buttons in time to jump over and dodge obstacles, and that's basically the whole game. It's a very simple game both in art direction and gameplay, which definitely isn't a bad thing, mind you. That's all you really need for a game like this, and Vib Ribbon does it immaculately. The game is fully in black and white with the previously mentioned vectograph style, which is one of the things I really appreciate about it. I love the limited graphics they use for this game, it's so charming. You also don't really see that almost ever anymore, at least not from companies like Nintendo, Microsoft, or in this case, Sony. Speaking of, Vib Ribbon was considered too simple for Sony of America to release back when it was releasing for the PlayStation 1. They didn't believe it would appeal to a Western audience, and therefore it wouldn't be marketable. So it ended up releasing in Japan in December of 1999, in Europe in September in the year 2000. Do you think there were people in Europe freaking out about Y2K because they weren't going to be able to play Vib Ribbon? I need my Vib Ribbon, but my PlayStation is gonna kill me. But it really is a shame we didn't get Vib Ribbon in America for such a long time. But it's probably for the best Sony didn't get a chance to market it over here. I don't want to imagine the type of commercial the US marketing team would have cooked up for Vib Ribbon, considering everything else they were making at the time. No, No! One very interesting thing about Vib Ribbon is that it lets you play your own music using CDs. You see, back in my day, we used CDs to play music. You kids these days wouldn't get it. This also means you could play any song assuming you have it on a disc. Finally, I can play Vib Ribbon as the creators have originally intended.
Driving in my car right after
But I do think that is a really cool idea for a rhythm game, especially considering how simple the game is to begin with. Having you be able to play basically any song on it is just a really nice touch. But even without that, the music in this game is just... mwah. Chef's kiss. Do they really? Oh, Jesus! Oh, sorry about that, guys. That was my, evil clone. Evil Shnoodle.jpg.png. But she's dead now, canonically, so we're all good. While I would like to go over each of these songs and talk about them in depth, I unfortunately don't have the time due to not wanting this video to go on for too long. Nor do I have the musical understanding to really talk about it. But I would like to show a few songs that really itch my brain. The OST was made by the band Laugh in Peace, and I seriously recommend listening to the full soundtrack for the game. Also, you may have noticed one of those songs actually shares a name with the band itself. This song is also known as Do You Know, or You Know What. Is there a reason why this one song in particular shares a name with the band it comes from? I don't actually know. At least not from what I can find, there doesn't seem to be a true meaning behind it. Maybe they just really like this one song in particular. The band was formed in 1991, with the band members being Gary and Big Ben, which I assume are just their stage names, with their real names, which I won't be butchering here but will put on screen for y'all to read. I'd also just recommend listening to any of their music. Most of it is just for the Vib Ribbon OSTs, but, you know, it's really good. Go have a blast. A few other things I wanted to mention before moving on to the next game was how, depending on how well you do on a stage, Vibri's form can change depending on that. So if you do well, she turns into Super Vibri, who I've also seen being referred to as Queen Vibri, where she loses her ears for a crown and gains a pair of wings. But if you fail repeatedly, you eventually turn to a frog, and if you continue to fail, then you turn into a worm. Would you still love Vibri if she was a worm? Also, another thing I wanted to bring up is the game over screens. Just because they're really silly. I like, you want to see? You do? You also have other ones where Vibri motivates you to keep trying, ones where she crumbles up, and one where she sits on the floor and cries. Oh, that's my comfort character feeling utter despair and sadness. And that was Vib Ribbon. Yep, nothing else to talk about. Wrap it up, folks. Oh, wait, I forgot to tell you how Vib Ribbon came to America. At E3 in 2014, the then Sony president and CEO Shawn Layden was talking about Vib Ribbon, calling it a beloved cult classic, which got people excited. Obviously assuming, considering the mention, the game might be getting a sequel, or even a re-release in America. But what had happened was Shawn Layden assumed the game had already been released in America. Now with the fans excited for the game and public outcry, they decided to finally release it in America in October of 2014 for the PS3 and Vita. which is cool, and obviously is a good thing, but unfortunately, its sequels didn't really get the same treatment. Speaking of sequels, Vib Ribbon actually got 2 sequels. Well, sort of. One being a spin-off of the original game, while the other being a direct sequel, with both being Japanese exclusives. The first being Vib Ribbon, released in 2003, but instead of the vector graph style like the original, it goes for an ink brush aesthetic, which personally reminds me a lot of Okami, which obviously also isn't the first game with that style, but I'd find any excuse to mention Okami. Come on, Capcom, give us Okami 2 already. I'm literally going feral over here. While I do like this style, I think losing the vector graph look of the original game is a real shame, because to me, that's what made Vib Ribbon so special and distinct compared to other games of the time. Even with that, I do understand why the change was made. Being able to separate itself from Vib Ribbon a bit, especially considering they decided to replace the main character for this game, with Vibri being the protagonist. But since the game is fully in Japanese and considerably less popular, there's only so much I can really say about it without just pulling from the Wikipedia page. Now, other than the things that I've already talked about, it seems to be the same type of game loop as the original Vib Ribbon. Also, while some sources I found say Vibri is in the game, I can't really find any real proof of that, so take that with a grain of salt. But if you want to do your own research, I would highly recommend it, because unfortunately, it also is another game that seems to have a very small community, if any at all. But what I do know is apparently they rap. Good for them.
Snap back to reality, oh, it goes gravity, oh, it goes gravity, so many won't give up, daddies, he know, he won't have any, no, so fast, he's so mad.
Then we have Vib Ripple, which is the sequel to the original Vib Ribbon, released in 2004, and being the last game in the series to date. I hope they do a faithful job keeping the original game style and gameplay intact. The game is a bit, overstimulating. If you couldn't tell, it's very bright and colorful, with a lot going on compared to the very simple art style of the original game. But in a weird way, it also gives me a strange sense of nostalgia. With all the bright colors and flashy lights, it reminds me a lot of the early internet, where every website was very ugly, but in a way that was still charming. But I also feel if I look at this for too long, it's actually just gonna give me a headache. It's fair to say I have very mixed feelings on the art direction of this game. In-game, it seems a bit hard to even see Vibri with all the color surrounding her, and the fact that she's so small. She gets to be small girl! And unlike the 2 previous games, Vib Ripple is no longer a rhythm game, with that taking a back seat, now being a puzzle game. Oh, clumsy me, that was the wrong sound effect.
Boo! You stink!
I don't actually have a problem with this, more just thinking it's a strange direction to take the game series. But hey, I'm no Masaya Matsura. But god, I wish I was. Oh, yeah, that's the creator of Vib Ribbon. I don't think I mentioned that until now. Oopsie. But hey, let's actually go over the game. At least to the best of my ability. But like I said previously, I'll probably have to pull a lot from the Wikipedia page, which I really don't want to do. But that's why I'll also rely on the uploaded videos I can find on the interwebs. So thank you to everyone behind the wiki page and those who posted videos of game footage. Considering without it, I wouldn't really be able to make this video. Especially one AbeX301 on YouTube. Even though they seem to abandon their channel a while back, I still like to credit them for being one of the few sources that prove this game even exists. So, thank you, random citizen. One thing I can say about the game is the music quality is consistent with the previous titles, which is obviously very important to these games considering it's, well, a music-based series. Also, much like the original games let you import your own music, this one lets you import your own images into the game. Which, while I prefer the music aspect of the original still, this is still a cool way to both pay homage to the original game and bring in the new gimmick. Oh, did I tell you the game's gimmick? Well, as you play as Vibri, you hop around on an image like a trampoline and try to collect pitas.
Peter, the Peter's here.
Oh yeah.
And while you search for these pitas, you also have to avoid bunchies. So if you get hit by one of these, you de-evolve into a frog, and then a worm. Just like the original games. And also like the original games, you also get the original form of Queen Vibri returning, with her being able to disable Boonshies and help find hidden items. Yeah, so Queen Vibri no-diffs everyone in One Piece and Dragon Ball Z and JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Sorry, I don't make the rules. And that's Vib Ribbon. Yes, I'm probably missing quite a few things due to being unable to actually play the games myself. Unless, you know, I wanted to sail ye 7 seas. Which I would never do, for moral reasons, obviously. And not that I really have no clue on how to do it. And that was the history of the game franchise. Unfortunately, we don't get any sequels after Vib Ribbon, marking the end of Vibri as a game series in 2004. Or is it? Yeah, it is. Or at least what seems to be a permanent hiatus. But it doesn't mean there's no chance of her returning. And it also doesn't mean we're done talking about her. No siree. So it's time to talk about... This section will be pretty short due to the fact, well, there aren't that many appearances of Vibri outside of her home series. So there aren't going to be that many cameos either. There only ended up being 2 that I could find through my research, both being from the Astrobot series. But they rarely let anyone in these games, like Robit, Polygon Man, and I've never even heard of this one before. A Crash Bandicoot. Yeah, really scratching the bottom of the barrel now, Sony. Even with that, I can't really complain about Vibri getting something, especially considering her last game was over 20 years ago at this point. But it's time to go over these appearances. First we have Astro's Playroom, where you get to play a simplistic version of the original Vib Ribbon. Not really much else to say considering, well, it's just classic Vib Ribbon, but missing Vibri, with you instead playing as the silly little robot guy. Go crazy! Go stupid. I do like his little saunter though. It's very reminiscent of Vibri's bouncy walk in the original game. I really appreciate that. But there really isn't much else to say, so let's move on to... Only the most original jokes on the Shnoodle channel. Listen to this one. We can finally do. We can beat. With this, we actually get an Astrobot version of Vibri, with her angular eyes and rhombus ears, with her also going by Ribbon Rider. Much like how every other character has a simplified version of their character's name, like that of Boy, and the aforementioned Boy, obviously. I know. Crazy stuff. Vibri also seems to be able to stretch her limbs just like in the original game. As you also may have noticed, she comes with a little set piece. Just thought I should point that out because I'm really running out of things to talk about. So instead of wasting any more time, let's move on to the next part of the video. Roughly a year after the original release of Vib Ribbon, we got the Vib Ribbon art book. Well, I say we, but obviously by that I mean, much like almost everything else in this franchise, it was a strictly Japanese release. Hooray! It also didn't get any official translation, and in fact, this book at one point was considered lost media. You scared? It's okay. Lost media can be very scary. Like, A Day with SpongeBob SquarePants. With the book only getting scans about 4 years ago, which means for over 20 years, unless you had a copy, there was no way to know the contents of this book. Which, I'm happy it didn't remain as lost media, but the fact it was at one point, and for as long as it was, is honestly just really upsetting. But let's actually take a look at the contents of this book, shall we? But since I'll only be going over it, I recommend going to taking a look at the full thing for yourself. I'll be leaving a link in the description for a video showing off all the pages.
Collect my Vib Ribbon pages.
But also, you can easily find the scans online. So, Go bananas. I'll just be going over the things I find interesting. Also, since there isn't any official translation, and I won't be using Google Translate for it being very unreliable, I won't really be able to read it myself. I'll mostly just be going off of visuals. Besides, that's how I've been doing in my entire life.
How can you read this? There's no pictures.
Well, some people.
The first thing I like to point out is a pair of 3D glasses in the book. This is because both in the top left and bottom right of every page, there's a little picture of Vibri that requires the 3D glasses. And by flipping through the pages, you get a little flipbook animation. And this is what each of the pages look like. That just makes me happy.
Yay! Yes!
One of the pages that really stuck out to me when first looking through this book was a page that shows, how do I put this? A very sexualized version of Vibri. I can't believe they would do this. I'm sorry, I can't stand for this. I have to go. Oh. Damn. I do like how these pages show how Vibri feels towards being, well, boobed boobily. And obviously how the artist also doesn't think this is right either. I really respect that. Hopefully some other communities can learn from this. Also, we get to see many new characters, and I'd like to point some of them out. There aren't that many, but considering up to this point we've only seen, well, 2, I think showing the rest of them won't hurt. So I'll be going over each in order they show up in the book. The first character we see shows up in page 52, who may or may not be Vibri's cousin. I heard mixed things on this page saying whether or not this character is her cousin, but this character does seem to be separate from Vibri. Unlike the other pages showing multiple Vibris. Vibri? I don't know. Either way, this character counts as something in my book. And as we see Vibri travel the world, we see whatever this thing is. Yeah, I have no clue. It seems to have a frog face with the rest of its body being built up of strange objects. Doohickeys even. So while I would like to know what this whole book is about in general, I'd especially like to know whatever this page is about. So if you know how to read Japanese, I'd love to know. Deltarune machine looking ass. As we see her visit more places, we end up meeting Soramo and Kuramo. Soramo? I don't know. I'm not Italian. Both of them have these axolotl looking things and plus eyes. Also pointy noses. They strangely seem more human in comparison to the seemingly mostly animal world, such as these 2 monkeys on the next page. But I'm not here to question it. I'm here to point at things and go, wowza, wowie zowie. That's a crazy. Then we see Vibri go to the movies. And she gets to see Godzilla.
It looks like Godzilla, but due to international copyright laws, it's not.
Vibri then proceeds to use what looks like a comically large microphone, and then, dies. Moving on. She seems to fall in love with a scarecrow, and that's it. That's every character in this book. With page 75 showing all of these characters together. Except, well, whoever these human-looking characters are. Editing Shnoodle here. So, these 2 characters actually show up earlier in the book, and I somehow missed it. These being Sadoro and Madoro. So, my bad. Oopsie. And that was the Vib Ribbon art book. I left out a lot because, well, I think this in particular you should go check out, especially with it being easily accessible in comparison to, say, the games. So, go check it out. Now. Now, you might be asking, what's the point of all this rambling about Vibri, considering this isn't a simple history of Vib Ribbon video? Especially because I wouldn't consider myself a Vibri expert by any regard, even with my research, and I feel like I'm missing out on a lot of it, due to me not being able to get my hands on any of the games, nor even be able to understand most of it due to being, well, American. So my point is... Wait, what was my point again? What I want to say is, while I wish Sony cared more about this franchise, I also know there's hundreds of other series like Vib Ribbon that had the same fate, or possibly even worse. And I don't want to fully pin the blame on them, for each of these games still not being the most accessible, considering how many there truly are. And especially because Vib Ribbon wasn't particularly popular at the time it released, and even now only a small group of people still celebrate this series. But at the same time, the fact the CEO didn't even know their own game didn't come to America, and the same series had a case of lost media that spanned over 2 decades is still just really upsetting to hear. I can play devil's advocate and say maybe the billion-dollar company can't keep track of all of their IPs, but at the same time, it causes these games to become unplayable by normal means. With the only way to play these games is either by buying an outdated console and exporting a game from another country that hasn't been produced in over 20 years, or spending hundreds of dollars on eBay, or, well, piracy. Luckily, Sony doesn't crack down as hard on people when they do this to their older games, but not every company is as friendly. So I would like you to consider all of the games. Popular and flops, with some being lost of time if it wasn't for the sake of the internet. I want to cap this all off by saying, if your father works at Sony, please tell him to bring Vibri back. We miss her very much. I know all of that was kinda dim, but there was one other point I had, and it was half the reason I was even able to finish this video. I want to talk about the true reason this series and others, despite these circumstances, live on. I want to talk about the fans. They are the reason we were able to preserve the lost art book. There's a reason why Vib Ribbon was released in America after so many years. The fans of Vib Ribbon or any series out there are the reasons why they don't die out. Either being the reason the franchises can be conserved for the next generation of people to play or watch, but to even produce their own talented works for these series that they love. One person I particularly really want to shout out is P. Caradell on YouTube. If this video got you interested in Vib Ribbon in any way, go check out their videos on YouTube. They make some of the best Vib Ribbon content out there, and are still actively making more stuff. I also want to motivate you too. If you have a franchise you love, either that be Vib Ribbon, Parappa, Sonic, or, I don't know, just spitballing, Skylanders? Which is obviously a totally random example, obviously. I want to see you guys show your love for these series, because at the end of the day, as long as there's people playing these games, drawing these characters, writing about them, or even as something as simple as talking about them, they still live on a series. No matter how popular or niche, the community for them is what keeps them around, even after they've seemingly been forgotten about. So, what I'm saying is, you should go show love for your favorite games, now! If you made it to the end of the video, thank y'all for watching. I know I've been gone for quite a while now, and by that I mean 2/3 of a year. Yeah, sorry about that, but I had a little rebranding, and it was the first time I made a video of this caliber, so I hope y'all enjoyed it just as much as I did making it. If I missed anything, or got anything wrong, please feel free to correct me in the comments. I also hope this video inspired you to go check out anything Vibri related, whether that be the games, the art book, art made by the community, or even inspire you to make some of your own. If you do, feel free to send it to me on my Blue Sky. Or if you feel so generous to make art of me, feel free to also send it to me on my Blue Sky. Maybe I'll even show it at the end of these videos. Who knows? Consider liking or even subscribing if you want to see more videos like this. Also, YouTube apparently has a new hype feature. I'll be honest, I don't really understand how it works. But you could also hype me, I guess. And with that, I hope y'all have a pleasant day. Bye bye.